Last episode, we created this incredible mountain, and we also worked on completely transforming our terraforming around the base. Not to mention, we laid out a bunch of plans for future expansions around this area. And at the very end of that episode, I mentioned this gigantic build. And so for those of you that caught the hint, kudos to you. But for those of you that didn't, today we are going to be creating a villager town hall. A mega villager town hall. Why am I doing two mega projects back to back? That's an excellent question. But if you're excited for today's build and today's episode, go ahead and drop a like right now. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Now, when I initially was designing this build, I did not intend for it to get as big as it is. But my ambition kind of got out of hand, and now where I'm standing, this area will be completely replaced with one build. And that is honestly a very daunting task, but I'm excited for it, and I'm very excited to show you guys what I put together. And if you're excited for today's episode, you know what to do. Leave a like, drop a comment, let me know. And now, without any further ado, how's it going, everyone? My name is Coda, and welcome back to another episode in my survival world. Now, mega projects are great and all, but they also require a mega resource grind. And you can see a little bit of it has already been started. But this is sadly only about half of the amount of resources that we are going to need to complete this entire build. Which means I've got a lot of grind ahead of me before I can even start on the grind that this build project is going to be. I need to collect thousands and thousands of resources just for this one build. Why? Why did I do this to myself? But you know what? It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. It'll look so cool right here at the edge of our town. But before we get started, I wanted to mention what was going on in the middle of the mountain. And you see, currently it's being used as a David Copperfield. But you may also see that I have a bunch of signs laid out everywhere. So over the next few episodes, we're going to be working on putting farms right in the center of this mountain here. But for now, I claim all of this area as part of the resource grind for today's build. And in the future, we'll transform it into something else. And last bit of in-between episode business, these guys. So if we have time enough in today's episode, we might do something with these guys. I've always wanted skeleton horses. And I finally updated to 1.19.4, and they did a lot of horse updates in this update. And the final bit of in-between episode news, one of my fabulous viewers named our cat, Catalotl. Yep, Catalotl. Like axolotl, but a cat? She hates me. Anyway, I've got a ton of resources to collect. When I said thousands and thousands of resources, this is just, it doesn't do it justice. Every single one of these shulker boxes is filled with materials that we are going to use for this project. Every single box is filled to the brim with resources, minus this box, which, as you can see, we depleted our supplies of andesite. I even had to go and get more in the middle of building just the foundation for this build. Why am I doing this to myself? I did not need to do 2 mega projects back to back. But here we are. The base is in place, the schematic is loaded up, there's only one more thing that needs to be done. I just get to put it all together now. And check back in with you guys in 6 hours. And there we have it. The first build in our town expansion. We really are starting this one off strong. This build took me hours in a creative world to design, and hours on top of that just to build it and move it into this world. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I really enjoyed experimenting with the build style and trying to get it just to look right and feel right in our world, and I think I really succeeded at that. Sitting here at the main focal point of where this town is going to expand, this is really setting the pace for what we are going to put in this area, and I am very excited for it. Now, this is my first time using Litematica, so there was a little bit of a learning curve, hence why it took me a lot longer than I was expecting to create this, but we got there eventually. And now for the all-important, a build tour. Now, bear with me, because all the rooms are laid out, but there aren't details in them. So through the front door, we have a room. And then over here, we have space for a triple potato farm. And on the other side over there, a triple carrot farm. Because, of course, this build is mirrored down the center. I figured those 2 farms were appropriate given the scope of what this build represents. And we also didn't have any other place to put these farms, so it just felt right. Now back here we have a dingy little room where the drops from the potatoes and the carrots are going to come down and be stored for our use. Back through this main cross hallway and up these stairs here, you're going to start to notice a lot of blank walls. Now see, these walls are just begging to have paintings placed on them. Paintings and art and all that different stuff. But I didn't want to go through and just place paintings randomly. That didn't feel sincere enough. Because when you go to a city hall, when you go to a town hall, you'll notice all the different artworks along the walls and all the inscriptions that follow them. Every painting in those buildings has a meaning and a purpose, and that's what I want to talk to y'all about. So I was thinking, walking over to this little cafe area, I want to lay out space for y'all to suggest some paintings. So for instance, if you wanted the gigantic skull on fire, and you wanted me to put it right here, I'd put it right there. And then I'd take one of these warp signs and put it right underneath with your name. So if you want to leave a comment as to what painting you want and where you want it, there's a good chance it'll end up in this building. We have tons of wall space, literally everywhere. All you have to do is let me know what kind of painting you want. On top of that, we need to fill a lot of the space that aren't walls. And I've got a couple of ideas already, but this is a large build, and I'm not too keen on detailing large builds like this. So if there are any pictures or suggestions, Instagram posts, Reddit posts, anything like that you want to send me, go to the Discord, send me the link, send me the picture, and we can talk about where you want me to incorporate it into this build. Because there is a lot of space here, and I'm kind of afraid I'm not going to be able to fill it all by myself. And of course, if you do suggest something that I end up using, we can always discuss how you want to be mentioned in the video or in the build itself. Doing this, I feel like we can really capture the essence of a city hall, because not only do you have paintings with inscriptions all over the walls, you also have park benches dedicated to people who were donors, and in a way, this can be like you guys are donating ideas to this build. And I thought that could be really fun and a really great way to just add a lot of uniqueness to this place. Because like I mentioned, there is a lot of space in need of filling. But aside from that, we have the main purpose of this build, and up this centralized staircase around the corner, we have the big room. And this is going to be where all of the villager curing and all of the trading is going to be. This gigantic open space is the entire reason this build is here. On either side, we have a villager breeder, or at least a stencil for a villager breeder, and space enough between the walls and underneath the floors to incorporate some kind of mechanism that gets the villagers over here and, you know, gets a zombie to them. But then back up here for our trading purposes. And then once we get them situated how we want them to, we can get them in a minecart and then back down this big staircase and right out the window. I know it's not the most conventional thing, but if you think about it, we have this entire build, which is gigantic by the way, in case you couldn't tell, and only like a fifth of it is dedicated to what the actual purpose of this build was. So yeah, it can be a little unconventional, but really I was thinking about it, and once we get all the villagers done, and we're not really curing or getting new villagers anymore, I still wanted something that was going to sit there and stand the test of time, and really be a feature piece in this new area expansion. So while it might be a little overkill, it is the right kind of overkill, and I'm very proud of this build. Now while I was working on it, we also got a volunteer for our zombification. So once we get that in place, we'll get our volunteer up the stairs, and we'll be well on our way to curing. Now, one thing I did want to quickly mention, at the very end of this long hallway, I want to place a fountain right here, and definitely expand this area out some. But back here, we are going to put a fountain and a nice seating area, and, you know, eventually finish the terraforming around it. But the rest of this walkway is up for suggestions, so again, if you guys have any ideas, I mean, I won't beat a dead horse, but you know what to do. Hey there, Creative Coda here. I wanted to take some time to walk y'all through my design process for this build. Now, you're going to see a lot of crazy stuff, so just bear with me here. But initially, this is what our design looked like. Ignore all the other stuff that's around here. But this was the original design for the town hall. Now, I had a general idea for what I wanted this build to look like, and I just started using World Edit, so this honestly was some great practice for me. And I know it may look like we came up with something very complex, but honestly, you shouldn't let that scare you. Now, if you kind of imagine with me, break this down into different shapes. So here we have a square, and here we have a square. And then back here, this is just a diagonal square. Square, sphere, sphere, sort of, and then mirror it on the other side. That's pretty much all I started out with. From there, I kind of started to add a lot of the preliminary details, like the way I wanted the roof to look and this quartz overhang roof. And initially, I had Town Hall spelled out on the front. Obviously, we moved away from that, but it was, something that was part of the planning. But from the beginning, I had 2 entrances and this main hallway going through. And really, this stage of my creative process was just kind of getting the main ideas out of the way. You see, I have a lot of windows punched out everywhere, a couple of columns, some vertical things, just a lot of kerfuffle. And it's a lot like sketching, if you want to call it that. But then you'll see right behind it, I started to incorporate a lot of the details and a lot of the stylization that I wanted this build to have. So we brought in a lot of the sandstone, a lot of the bricks, and then the birchwood on these far accents. I had narrowed down the style that I wanted to use and started to slowly evolve it over time. But really, I want you to see that I just replaced the stone that we had outlined with the blocks that I wanted to use, and then here and there started to incorporate the details I wanted. Not super hard, right? But from this stage, I was able to get a lot of the coloration out of the sketch that we had before. And then from here, I applied it a little bit heavier. You can see this is what we landed on at the end and what's part of our world right now. But you can see how it evolved. It went from this diagonal rectangle to a domed cylinder, because I still wanted something to be on this side of the build. But the way that this diagonal bit was giving me trouble, I just wasn't a fan of it. So I changed up the sketch a little bit and added a few more jut out bits. But really the main balance of what I wanted the build to have was maintained. We got a little bit back there, the main bit here, this front area, the dome, the small dome, and then the same thing on the other side. And you can see here, I really started to incorporate more and more details into this phase. Once I got the shaping down, once I got the color down, then I started to add all these little details. And then here you can see I became fully satisfied with all the ideas that I laid out. Oh, and I also started working on the back here. Can't really talk too much about the back because we went from that to this. But over here you can kind of see it. Really, it was, again, getting the shape down, getting some of the color down, and then knocking out the detailing. I know it may seem intimidating at first, but people that are really good builders do this process, and they just take it one step at a time. And you really shouldn't get discouraged if you don't think your building is up to par or as good as you want it to be. This entire process took me around 3 days. 3 days to get to the way I wanted it to. And even then I still have some reservations about it. You don't know how many times I tore down and rebuilt and tore down and rebuilt and tried new things and things that didn't work out and just kept trying and trying and trying. Because with builds like these, that's really all you got to do. But yeah, once I got the outside done, I moved on to the inside, and it'll be super dark, but it's, again, the same thing that we had in our world. I know that was nowhere near a good explanation, but I wanted to really show you guys what my process was going through this entire project and spread some words of encouragement, because I know in this day and age, you see a lot of crazy builders out there. And it's okay to feel intimidated by big projects like this, but really it is simpler than we allow ourselves to believe. If you want more building tips and tricks, I do plan on trying to make a comprehensive build guide in the future, but with how busy school is right now, that probably won't be out for a while, but keep your eye out for that. I will try and write a script and make it actually cohesive enough to understand. Now, sadly, we did not get to do anything with these horses today, but I do have one thing I want to do. Dry bones. That's a fitting name for a skeleton horse. Of course, if you guys have any other names that you think would be perfect for these horses, obviously, you gotta tell me, because Dry Bones was about the extent of what I could come up with. But at this point, I might just be exhausted from that ginormous build. Now, there is still a lot we need to get done with this build, but sadly, I am out of time for today. And to keep this video from coming out a week late, I have to end it here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say, if you made it to the end of this video, there's a good chance you might like some of the other stuff I'm going to be posting and some of the other stuff I have posted already. So, why not subscribe? Stick around, and, you can always unsubscribe later. Though I promise you won't want that. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like, left a comment, left any kind of suggestion down there of what you want to see in this build, in this world, anything like that. Or, tell me how your day was going. Start a conversation or something. And be sure to check out the Discord, the Instagram. Both links are in the description of my channel. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a wonderful day.